Hello, viewers. Welcome back. I'm back here with Ian at Ecoustics, and we're going to take a look at our mid-tier offerings or picks for amplifiers and streaming amplifiers. So these are things maybe £1,500 to £2,000 to a little bit more, maybe £2,500. Everybody probably categorizes mid-tier differently, but that's what we're choosing. So,
right.
Ian, do you want to go first? What's your pick?
Yeah, so I have a tie, and I know that's a typical American thing to say. I really like the Schiit Audio Ragnarok 2. I mean, I happen to love Schiit Audio just as a brand because of like their whole ethos, the way that they've done business from day one.
Yep.
And I love the fact that it's a brand that, number one, they make everything domestically. So,
Yep.
number one, when the consumers see the made in the USA aspect and they see the prices, they kind of scratch their heads because they're like, how are they making these products for such an affordable price? The Ragnarok 2 is actually a really well-designed, well thought out integrated amplifier. It's not the most powerful integrated amplifier I've ever heard. I've actually tried it with my Magnapan LRS and had to really air it out, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on the volume dial. So, it's not necessarily the best choice for those speakers.
Right.
But the power is enough for most I would say most bookshelf speakers, definitely enough power for most affordable floor standing speakers.
Yeah.
It's got a very, very sort of full, slightly forward sounding presentation. It's a little incisive. With some sources and some systems, it can sound a little incisive. But it has an excellent DAC. It's basically the guts of one of Schiit Audio's entry-level sort of multi-bit DACs.
Yeah.
Built into it. Yeah.
The Modi, probably.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, or the Modi. Yeah, the Modi 3, maybe whatever the most recent version of the Modi is, the multi-bit version. I think that's the DAC that's inside the Ragnarok 2.
Okay.
It does have a phono stage, so the phono stage is definitely a bit of a weakness.
Yeah.
It's essentially taken from Schiit Audio's entry level phono stage. And there are definitely a lot better phono stages that you can buy that are even only £100, £200 more. And I happen to think that the money is better spent on the phono of an external phono stage. It has balanced inputs and outputs. It has USB input. It's a very interesting product. I've now run it like really hard for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it's never even like had a hiccup, like not one time.
What's its sonic signature? How would you describe that?
It depends on the speaker. Like, it's weird. I found that with the Magnapan LRS, it was a little incisive. I mean, and the Magnapan LRS are not the warmest sounding panel speakers I've ever heard. They definitely have, a very lean bottom end, but the mid range is so good on those speakers for 600. I know it's much more expensive in the UK. I know from speaking actually with Ken Kessler, another audio journalist, very well revered, hi-fi journalist in the UK. So Ken and I have known each other for a while. He had a project that he did with a pair of LRS, and we both agree that for the money, they're untouchable.
Yeah.
But they're not $650 US in the UK. I think they may even be double the price because of the import duties and and VAT. I think the VAT and everything like that has made them much more expensive.
Yeah.
But the Ragnarok 2 can be a little incisive. It's not bright. Like I wouldn't say there's anything about its top end that is bright sounding at all.
No.
And it's just like it's just a good amp. It's one of those things you listen to. I know my wife hates the fact that the way that the volume control is designed, that you hear every click.
Yeah.
And I can tell that I'm going to get in trouble because I'll be sitting on the couch and I'll take the very well designed remote. It has an excellent remote. And when I raise the volume, you hear the click, 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 click.
Step relay. It's a step relay.
Volume control. It drives my wife up like off the deep end. She's like, "Oh, I can tell you're using that Schiit Audio amplifier." But it is good.
Good solid amp. Yeah,
it is a solid amp. So what's
your
your pick in this very highly contested category?
Yeah, this is there's a lot of stuff this is an area where I have reviewed an awful lot of amplifiers, and my first pick would have to be my amplifier of the year for 2021, the Exposure 2510. It's just I mean, it's a bit of a cheat. As it's 15. I think the Ragnarok is £1,450 when I looked it up today. I think that's what the price
Okay.
it is here in the UK. I don't know how that equates to what it is in the US.
1,700 probably.
Yeah, so it's not out of the way.
Yeah.
So the exposure is 1600. It's as purest a piece as you can get. It's
Okay.
basically just a power amplifier with a passive preamplifier stage. It has got a phono stage built in, and which is supposed to be very good. I didn't test it because I'm digital only at the moment.
Okay.
The tonality of it is superb. It just sounds completely natural with much more expensive gear. You know, when you put it with things around it that aren't price appropriate, it scales up well in terms of tonality. It's the scale and dynamics that, you know, where it won't compete with, you know, much more expensive amplifiers. It's very detailed. It's fairly neutral, a little bit touch on the romantic side, and it just a very seductive kind of sound. If you listen, if you probably not for the person who wants to rock out,
Okay.
because you probably pick something with a bit more power, 75 watts, which is reasonable power, but probably pick something beefier for the same money, which probably have a little bit more grip and control at the bottom end with and play a little bit louder. But if you listen to vocals, acoustic instruments, jazz, classical, all of that stuff, it just I don't think there's nothing solid state to touch it for the money that I've come across.
Exposure is a brand that doesn't get a lot of coverage in the US, and a part of it has to do with its distribution.
Right,
And, I know that they have a new distributor. I think it's actually based up in Canada.
right,
And Exposure is a brand that I think a lot of audiophiles in the US know is good.
mm,
And but when it's not, when it doesn't get the kind of press coverage, it kind of falls by the wayside, unfortunately.
yeah,
And and like so like where the name Nate 5SI
mm,
gets more reviews because Name Focal is a much larger company, and
yeah,
obviously they have a much they have much deeper pockets on the marketing side.
yeah,
So like even if the Exposure is a maybe potentially even better sounding amplifier,
yeah,
not as many reviewers request it,
yeah.
and not as many consumers can find it, let's say in local hi-fi shops. Like I mean, I don't think I've ever actually seen Exposure in New Jersey at a dealer.
Yeah,
So it's
it's as close to what you could get. You know, I mean, there's no such thing as a typical tube sound, but in most people's mind, what people associate with a tube sound is that kind of liquid mid-range.
yeah.
It's as close as you can get to that with a solid state amplifier that I've come across.
So it's probably something that I would like. So now I have to chase down the Exposure distributor and and harass them in only the way that I know how to harass people. I actually do have another though integrated amplifier that British audiophiles will probably go like, yeah. So I am a huge fan of Croft Acoustics.
Mm,
And I don't even know what the status of the company is because I've heard rumors that Glenn Croft like retired or is retiring.
okay.
And Croft Acoustics is not a popular brand in the US.
No.
And that is a catastrophe in my mind for people who want to hear something really different.
Mm,
Um, Croft is really big in the UK. I know there are even like websites, like there are forum groups in the UK that have like very, very heavily trafficked Croft only, pages and threads.
right.
So Croft has a real following in the UK. The Croft Phono integrated, I know, is available for sale in the US from one or two people.
Yeah.
But it's not, I mean, there hasn't, I think I may have been the last person to review it
Yeah.
now that I think about it.
Yeah.
It was reviewed by Stereophile by two or three of their reviewers probably 6 or 7 years ago. Like that's how long it's been since it's had a proper review.
Yeah.
But Croft gear is so good.
Mm,
And people look at it and they kind of because it's a very utilitarian looking box.
yeah.
There's nothing special about it. I mean, I don't even think the casework is more than like yay thick. I know they know that's a ridiculous way to do it, but it's really but it's just not like he didn't spend the money on the
Yeah.
casework.
Yeah.
It's like the exact opposite of a Boulder amplifier. I think
Yes.
the remote control on the Boulder amplifier has more metal
Yeah.
than a Croft piece. But Glenn Croft's magic has always been in his circuit design.
Yeah.
And what makes the Phono integrated so unique is that the moving magnet phono stage is like,
Yeah.
it is a magnificent phono preamplifier. It's a little noisy, and I've tried it with enough cartridges over the years that I know which cartridges are better with it.
Mm.
But man, Croft makes some seriously good stuff. And
Well,
if you're into the British sound, like if you like British speakers, like I know because you're a Proac guy. So if you like Proac, if you like Spender, if you like Harbith, if you like Wharfdale, if you like older Kef, Q Acoustics is actually a really good match with Croft Acoustics.
right.
It's fantastic stuff, but the
Yeah.
problem is, like, it's not sexy, and audio press guys want sexy, and I want something that I know is going to work every single day, and the tubes are not going to blow, every 10 days on me, which I've had happen over the years in some preamps I won't mention.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the Croft Phono integrated, if you can find it, is really, really worth the money.
Well, you turned me onto that last time we spoke. God knows what was that? A good few months ago, last year,
Yeah.
middle of last year, and I didn't know that he was still going. I thought, and he must be knocking on now because he's been around for a while, Glenn Croft.
He's got to be in his 70s.
Okay, all right.
He
Okay.
has to be. He has to be
Yeah.
in his 70s.
Yeah. So I tried a few times. I thought there's a number in the UK you can dial. So every few weeks I pick up the phone, try and ring. It rings, it never answers. So
That's good to know.
there's no answer. And so I tried about 3 or 4 times over a space of maybe a couple of months, because I thought what I like about that is they do the phono integrated, which runs some dual triode tubes. Actually, I made a note of it. I'll tell you in a second. I made a note of it. And they do, so there's the gain stage on the phono integrated is provided by these dual triode tubes.
Right.
But there's also one which is on the line level input. I don't know exactly what
Correct.
it's doing in the circuit. So if you go for the line level version, because they do a version without the phono, which I think is
Right.
about £1,100, and it's still got a tube front end. And it's a very interesting design, and it would be something I'm sure would be right up my street. So I was quite keen to think, well, actually, it's a British audiophile, should be celebrating this stuff. And so I got fed up. I thought, right, okay, I'm going to have to try some other route. And I thought I won't bother you. So I phoned a dealer. There's not many dealers that stock them in the UK because it's a tiny little brand. So I phoned up their Audio Affairs, the dealer in Midlands here in the UK. And he said, "Oh, you can forget trying to ring him. I haven't spoken to him in 10 years. We do really well with this amplifier. He's always he doesn't answer the phone. He's always in the workshop building amplifiers. I mean, it's as far away from corporate as you can get, which is what I love about some of these small British brands. So
yes,
he's there.
I think Croft is one guy.
Yeah, and he's sitting there building his amps, and he thinks, "Sod that, I ain't answering the phone. Whoever's that." And he says, "Well," I said, "Well, how do I get in touch with him then?" He says, "You can email him." And you know what it's like. If you email people who never heard from you before without any kind of introduction, the likelihood is you don't get anywhere. So I was keen to try and see if I could just have a conversation with him. And but yeah, that's where the stumbling block is. It's not so easy with some of these small British brands to get. I had similar stories with Sugden and with some of these small brands. They just make some fantastic stuff, but getting through to someone to have a conversation and say, "Listen, would you send me something?" is not always straightforward.
Croft was originally distributed here by a big company. Like they were part of, I think, Bluebird Music, which is based out of Canada and upstate New York. So it was like Chord. This is a while ago. It was Chord and Croft and Vienna Acoustics and Spender, actually, before Spender became part of Sound Organization down in Texas. And so Croft was more readily available. And you would even see it at a trade show. I remember once I walked into a trade show and I saw a Croft system and I almost had a heart attack because I couldn't believe that like someone was actually showing Croft at a show. But then Acoustic Sounds, which is a big online retailer here, Chad Kassem, who's an awesome guy, he was selling Croft for a while. And I noticed that suddenly when Bluebird dropped it, he kind of dropped it as well.
Right.
And so I do know of a dealer in California It's also, it has the Phono integrated also has dual volume controls, and which some people find really annoying, but actually it works relatively. I mean, to me, it's like you get used to certain things. You get used to kind of operating something. Croft also makes a wide range of amplifiers, much more expensive preamplifiers, and
Power amps.
and power amps. And it's just,
Mm.
I know that when he started the company, he used a pair of quad ESLs as his speakers of choice in terms of his amps. And a lot of people look at the Croft amplifiers and they're kind of like scratching their head, like, how is this driving the quad ESLs, not detonating
Yeah.
on your carpet? But
No.
a couple of conversations I've had with Glenn, he was basically, no, my amplifiers will drive the quad ESLs, no problem.
They're stable down to very low impedance loads,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. And then you open them up and you're thinking to yourself, this looks like 1970s like name gear, where like half the case is empty.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, where are the parts? Like
Yeah. Well, the exposure's the same. It's just good quality parts, very good circuit design, and there's not much in it. It's just they keep things as minimal as they possibly can, but they spend the money on really good quality parts.
Yeah. So so the Croft is my kind of esoteric. Like if I was gonna like only have one amplifier I could keep tomorrow, believe it or not, I would keep the Croft.
Right. Well, I might have to get you to send me one.
Yeah. You know what? Or I'll have to reach out to someone I know in the UK who might be able to knock on Glenn's door and be like, Glenn.
Yeah. I can picture him now in Scarborough in his workshop, just building amplifiers and ignoring the phone.
Sounds about right most days.
Yeah.
Did you want to pivot to, I guess, our semi-expensive network, or do you have an expensive network?
I've got another choice for mid-tier, and that was the Willsenton R8 tube amplifier. It's sold out of China Hi-Fi. It's a beast of a thing built. It weighs best part of 30 kgs. It comes with standard tubes, which are the Willsenton tubes, but it goes to an entirely different level if you upgrade the tubes to this PS gain tubes. So the 6 SL7s or whatever it's running on the voltage gain stage, you're going to CV181s, and you have a choice of running it with EL34s or KT88s. I preferred it with KT88s. Not everybody does. Slightly warmer with the EL34s, but doesn't have the same grip and control and dynamics. You can run it in ultra linear mode and triode. It's not a triode amplifier, but it's pseudo. It's kind of like simulates.
That's become a thing with a lot of companies. It's like they have the different modes.
Yeah. And I believe it is an old Leak design that they've kind of revamped up. It's about, with the upgraded tubes, I think here in the UK, by the time you've paid for shipping and delivery and taxes, it's probably going to be around £1,500. But
which is not horrible.
No, but it just built like a tank, big muscular presentation for something that produces only 45 watts. It has big sound. I mean, it's a completely different level of performance once you upgrade the tubes, and it's just warm, rich, got reasonable grip and control, big sound stage, and I think very hard to beat for the price.
Were you using it with your Pro X?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay, so I'm sure that made the Pro X sound a lot larger than they are.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Because I don't think the audience can see the Pro X behind you, but really good amplifiers have that magical ability to take a pair of bookshelf loudspeakers and make them sound very, very different.
Yes.
And, so yeah, no, I don't know if I've seen that amplifier here in the US.
It's sold directly globally by a Chinese company, built in China, a bit like Denafrips with Winshine Audio, sold through, but the mainland through China Hi-Fi. And there's about 3 or 4 products that are really hot through China Hi-Fi. That's probably the top of the list. It's all over. Every single YouTube reviewer has reviewed it. I always think, okay, well, let's see. I'm not one to get taken in for hype with the hype, and I think, okay, I'm going to probably take the wind out of its sails when I get around to reviewing it. But it's really good as a standard. You save yourself about best part of 500 quid and get the standard one with stock tubes. But and that sounds good with price appropriate gear. So if you've got, £1,000, £1,500 amplifiers, £1,000 DAC, but you could put the one with the upgraded tubes that can live with, better gear at the front end. Two grand DACs, £2,000-3,000 speakers, no problem at all. And just the dimensionality of it, it's just big and rich and warm and got good amount of control as well.
See, what's interesting is that over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, as the price has come down on a lot of products that are being sold, especially direct. So like this product in particular that you're mentioning, the Schiit Ragnarok 2, which is only sold direct.
Yeah.
The quality, everyone sort of looks at the prices and says, how good can it be for £1,500? How good can it be for, $1,700 US?
Yeah.
It can be really good. And I think, one of the things that you and I have both done, both on your channel and I've tried to do on Ecoustics, is explain to people that don't get so seduced by price.
Yeah.
There's of course, this is right before we talk about our favorite, the most expensive integrated amplifiers. But the truth is, when you start buying $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 pieces of equipment, if it is not the most mind-blowing experience of your life, that should give you pause. But I would make the argument that you don't need to spend that kind of money. I've heard some really, really expensive systems over the years that were in the upper six figures, like Bugatti level systems.
Wow.
And I wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
And I kind of walked out of the room sort of shaking my head like, why would anybody buy this for this much money and think that they were getting anything but a piece of jewelry? Like to me at that point, it's jewelry. It's not, you're not really buying a hi-fi system. It's, look how much money I have. This is what I can afford to spend on a pair of speakers, an amplifier, and a turntable. It's not really about enjoyment of music. Anyone who claims that, I spent $1 million on a hi-fi system because I love music so much, I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. I'm sorry, because I could put together a $50,000 system that would blow the minds of every human being on the planet. So I don't know.
Money is not always the answer. It's the same with cars.